Hello and welcome back to my channel Checks Captures Threats, and in today's episode, in episode 17, we're going over starting the opening. So, last episode we went over how to defend. That was part of the how to attack and how to defend part. Hopefully you understand all of that. Now we're going to be going through these next whole load of videos are going to be kind of going throughout the game. So starting the opening, ending the opening, into the middle game, end game, etc. So, 4 examples here again, but this time they're going to be all openings we're going over. So the first one will be the Queen's Gambit. We're quite used to that. Then it will be the Italian game, which we can show you. And then it's going to be, for black after, we're going to go over the French and the Nimzo Indian. What I'm trying to get across here is we're going to show you the moves, and then we're going to pick out what you should be doing if you don't know the opening, for example, what kind of to do if you're stuck, or in general what should be happening in the opening. So here is the first one, which we're going to go over the Queen's Gambit. So remembering how it goes, it's obviously d4, d5 and c4. Now then there's 2 ways here. So the main one being e6, you'll see a lot more. What you'll want here is many ideas of knights. Really want to get your knights out before the bishops in this scenario, depending on what they play. So here you'd want to either get one of these 2 knights out. So I think the main one here could be this one. It doesn't matter either way which one you do. Obviously we went over it before. Now, depending obviously what they do, it's the same thing for black. I'm using this both ways. Black will also be, he will be doing knights as well before the bishop, because as we see here, you don't really want to just be playing checks immediately in the opening. Though this might be good, it kind of gives us a tempo, gives us speed to develop while defending something. So there's that. So I wouldn't say giving checks early on is very ideal. So here, most likely you'll see a lot of either bishop d7 here, getting pieces out slow because this is their bad bishop. So you've got to be careful with as well. You see, white here has 2 good bishops really. This hasn't got out yet, that's why it's not the best. But this bishop's very good. Whereas black only has this good bishop and quite a bad bishop here. So obviously, in the opening, you're not going to worry about this bad bishop, really. It's just you're not going to use it. So what you're going to do now is you've got to try and, in the middle game, make sure that you can protect this square so you can push this pawn so you can get this out. So, but for white, now this is where earlier we didn't really want to play this move. Obviously we can't because it just loses a bishop. But now that they've brought this knight out, we can do so. We know where the knights are going, and we don't know that this bishop could have gone here at that point. But now that the knight goes out, we can now put the bishop here. So if we play a few more moves, you might see stuff like this knight coming out. And then here. And, they might play the pin now. As we saw, they couldn't do the check, but now they might do this. And I'll go over these last few moves. Right. This is pretty much the end of an opening here. The queen on c7 is a very good... Queen c2, sorry, is a very good move for the Queen's Gambit, because it obviously keeps this line. The bishop sometimes goes here, and you protect this knight. So, what we can gather from this is, where the knights are going. Bishops really don't come out unless there is a 100% definite spot, and the pawn structures are very symmetrical, other than the c4 pawn for the Queen's Gambit, and also the fact that white has been able to get their bishop out, whereas black is blocked in. So what we can learn from this is how making sure that you're not cramping pieces in. You see with this bishop, we've got to be careful in how we're going to let them out. Maybe you want to Frenchetto them out or anything. And also making sure that, because you know where the knights can go, making sure you have got a good square for the bishops. And you see how black has been able to castle, whereas white hasn't actually been able to get this bishop out yet. Because soon, if we play a few more moves, what black will probably do is, if we move this, we could say wasting a tempo, is after they take, he has to move the bishop again. And then after, he can just castle. So there is many... As we see here, it's a very good position for either side. No one's winning, really. So it's a very good position for both teams. So whether you want to play this white, whether you play this black, this is quite the position you'll get. So there is that. Now, we've done that one. Now another one is the Italian game. So that's e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. Now, this will turn it into the Guccio Piano game, so we're not going to have that. But again, here is many ideas in the Italian. e4, the reason d4 isn't as tactical. e4, even after a move like, if you think you can play this knight move, this can lead to all sorts of things after knight g5. Because if you don't protect that pawn, you're going to lose it. So you've got to be careful whenever what you move here. Now, some of the moves you could play, I think, are, obviously you've got bishop c5, as we said. Knight f6 is playable because you don't lose, but it's a very risky game. But d6 is the part of the Italian, which, again, you see it blocks the bishop in. But I think what we can understand here is, we say it blocks the bishop in, it can still move one square. Sorry, there. And it protects with the bishop and it can just come out quite easily. And we can follow shape here with white. But again, as you see, we just get some of these pieces out. We'll probably put the bishop here now. And, we're just going to make some moves out. Again, they can play the pin now because the knight's out. And we'll just play a few more moves here and there. So, again, a not so symmetrical position, but the knight's in all the same spots. There is still a pin. That's what you see in the opening. Creating a pin very quickly in the opening, lodges their pieces sometimes together. This could cause, obviously, this knight to stay there. And sometimes you might even have another piece, probably lodges the queen there. Because this queen moves off, you can take it. It can't castle. So, there's always ideas of that. But there is many tactics within e4 openings, so just be careful. We'll be going over them soon. So hopefully we can understand that here, again, it's the same thing of how quite good, same ideas really, getting the knights out here, bishops to where they can go, making sure we have a good pawn structure. Right. So, that was all the white side we did. Now these are the black openings. So, e4, e6, French defence. So after d4, we have d5. So, there is a few ideas here. I think the main one obviously being knight c3. Now, there's a few ideas. Knight f6 does have some risk though with e5. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to do the advanced variation just to show you how this can show what you do, because obviously this will be the main variation probably you'll be playing. So it's going to be along the lines of this. Just play a few moves here. Obviously remembering we can play this knight move because, again, if they take, we can play knight g6. I'll just quickly show you. We've got 2 on this pawn and on this pawn, so we always win a pawn here. Now, there's also, now this knight move as well, very good because it doesn't give us a pin. Because it is a pin, but the knight isn't right here, so the queen can just move. So, really, there'd be moves like this. And we can go queen to b6, for example, here. Maybe there's not queen b6 the best after you take, but what I'm just trying to get across here, I'll play a few more moves just to show you the ideal position. So, we're going to move here. And then, this is along the lines of what we would want. And there. Now you want to get the queen out, but as we see here, with every single one so far, we have an idea of what's going through for the game. We have plans. That's what you should always do. The opening, if you can get through the opening without losing stuff, then create plan for the middle game for what you can do. As we see here again, what we've created here is this knight protects us with this structure. We've also got, the white has 2 very good bishops here, I would say. Maybe not so with this structure here for this black bishop. But black's tried the same, and it's not really worked here because this pawn structure blocks both. But the pawn break of c5 is quite difficult for white to go against. But as we can see here again, what you want to try in the opening is you just want it to be solid. Nothing quick. None of these quick openings where you're getting the queen out, giving 200 checks. We don't want that. We want it to be just a nice solid opening that we're at least even. We don't always be winning off the opening. 9 times out of 10 that won't be happening. But as long as we can get an idea that we want to get our queen over here, attack this pawn, get the bishop maybe out here, trade off the centre, get this bishop out. Black has many ideas, so does white, with the fact that, you know, you can double up the queen and bishop, so and so. And last but not least, last time we'll be going over is against d4, and it's going to be the Nimzo Indian. So you start from knight f6. This is against Queen's Gambit, so if you do want something against it, this will be something we'll be going over. So this is the Nimzo Indian. Now, there's many ideas here that can be a bit weird. So if you play something like knight f3, now what's going to happen is black will be trading this and creating a double pawn. Now the reason is if they do anything else, like bring the knight out, they're going to push and have a tempo. We obviously can't do this because we're going to be trapped, as you can see here. So what we have to do really is, if they do this first, then we can still trade, and it's going to lead to this. So what this gives us now is what we call a double pawn. Now, when we do it here, what we can also do is black, we can also play c5, another pawn break, they would say. Because if they take, it's worse than double pawn, they're triple pawns. So really struggling, you know, they have nothing to protect them. It's almost two backwards pawns next to each other. And then that's where we can get the queen out, and we would absolutely be in a good position. But what this is here, so what you'll see most likely is this, and you can play this. They don't have to take, and we wouldn't obviously want to take back. So it'll be stuff like this, where you'll have very similar positions again, nothing weird about that, and you'd probably be Franchettoing this bishop. So again, more ideas. You know, this bishop could even come here, this bishop can come here, the knights can come in. You know, again, positionalizing from last episode, we can also play positional with this knight, doing this for example. But what we're just trying to get across this whole episode is just how these four openings, we can see the similarities in how they're all solid with the knights. The bishops have their own ways of going. The pawn structure is almost quite alright, other than some of them which can lead to double pawns, but we saw how that's affected it. And how we always have plans for the middle game. So if you're playing an opening, say the Queen's Gambit, and they play a move completely not what I've said or what anyone else has said, using the principle of what we've been doing, it should be quite, if you could just do what we've done, you should be able to at least get out the openings fine. You know, I'm not saying that you're going to be winning at the opening, I'm not saying, just make sure you're not losing at the opening, as long as you know that. Look for obvious traps that they might create and anything like that. So, that is the end for today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So that's all. Thank you, and bye-bye.